Hey, ARMY, it's me, Taehyung. It's been a while since we've talked like this, right? Just me and you. Lately, I've seen so many things being said about me, about love, about marriage, about the future, and I thought maybe it's time I speak to you directly. I don't want this to feel like an interview or an announcement. I just want to talk honestly, like a friend, like someone you've known for a long time. You know, when I first saw my name trending with the word marriage, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt unreal. I've seen so many headlines about myself over the years, but that one hit different. It wasn't about a new project or a stage or some photo shoot. It was about me, my life, my heart. I remember that day clearly. The lights were bright, cameras everywhere, and I could feel hundreds of eyes waiting for me to say something unexpected. But honestly, I didn't plan to. I didn't go there thinking, okay, today I'm going to talk about marriage. It just came out. I guess I've reached that point in my life where honesty feels easier than pretending. For so long, I kept parts of myself hidden because that's what idols do, right? We smile, we perform, we give our best, but we also learn to keep our hearts locked up because showing too much can be misunderstood. But that day, something changed in me. I looked at the audience, at the reporters, and I realized they're all human too. And maybe it was time for me to stop being afraid of my own truth. So when I said I've been thinking about marriage, I wasn't making some grand announcement. I was just being human. I wanted to express that I've thought about what kind of person I'd want by my side someday, what kind of life I want when all the noise fades. But people took it differently. When the interview ended, I remember walking backstage. My hands were shaking a little, not from regret, but from relief. Like I had just opened a door I kept closed for too long, and that night I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up messages, mentions, articles, people analyzing every single word I said. Some were supportive, saying things like, Taehyung deserves to be happy, while others sounded disappointed. And honestly, that hurt a little because all I wanted was to be honest, not to shock anyone, not to stir rumors, just to speak from my heart. You know, I've always been a little quiet about love. Maybe because love to me isn't about noise. It's about peace, the kind of peace that feels like home after a long day. And marriage, it's not a fairy tale. It's not about a perfect image or a perfect story. It's about finding someone who understands both your silence and your chaos. When I was younger, I thought marriage was something far away, something only adults did when they had everything figured out. But now, as I've grown older, I realize no one really has everything figured out. You just find someone who's willing to walk through life with you, step by step, mistake by mistake, and still stay. So when I mentioned it, I guess people heard marriage and forgot to hear the rest. What I meant was I've been thinking about the future, not in a hurry, but with hope. Because I know that no matter how bright the lights get, they eventually fade. And what's left is the person you come home to. I remember sitting in the van after that interview, watching the city pass by and and thinking maybe honesty is scary because it reveals who we really are. But it's also freeing because for once I wasn't speaking as V from BTS. I was just speaking as Kim Taehyung, a man who's learning, growing, and hoping for love like everyone else. People asked me later, were you talking about someone specific? Smiled softly. You know, that's the funny part. No matter what I say, people will always try to find a name. But the truth is, I wasn't talking about anyone in particular. I was talking about the idea of love itself, the kind that takes time, the kind that makes you want to become a better person, and maybe one day, when the time is right, I'll talk about it again, but not in a press room, not under stage lights, but quietly, maybe sitting by the Han River with someone who understands me even when I don't say a word. So, yes, I spoke about marriage, and maybe it surprised you, but it wasn't a headline moment for me. It was a human one because behind the music, the cameras, and the schedules, there's still me, a person who wants to love, to build something real, to find peace in a world that never stops watching. And if there's one thing I learned from that day, it's this: you can't control how people interpret your truth, but you can control how true you are to yourself. And I think that's the kind of honesty I want to live with from now on. Poses softly. So if you ever hear my name next to the word marriage again, don't think of it as news. Think of it as a man finally being ready to live his life honestly, without fear, and with love. After that day, things changed. Not in a bad way, but in a quiet, complicated way. The kind of change you don't see right away, but you feel in how people look at you, in how they talk to you, and in how you start talking to yourself. I remember waking up the next morning, opening my phone, and seeing headlines from all over the world. Taehyung talks about marriage. Taehyung reveals his future plans. Who is the person he's referring to? And for a second, I just stared at the screen, not sure whether I should laugh or sigh. Because the truth is, I didn't say much, but people heard everything. They built stories out of a few words, and suddenly I was part of a narrative I didn't write, but that's what fame does. It takes your honesty and turns it into a guessing game. I stayed silent for a few days, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted things to calm down. I watched the reactions, some fans defending me, saying he deserves to be happy, others asking, is this really the time? And I understood both sides. Because being an idol means existing between two worlds, the world of who you are and the world of who people think you should be. I've always known love and fame don't coexist easily. When people love you for your art, they also start to claim pieces of your heart. And when you talk about something as personal as marriage, it feels like you're handing their heart to millions of people at once. Some will hold it gently, some might crush it without meaning to. But I can't blame them. Fans have been with me through everything, from my first nervous debut stage to the nights when I felt completely lost. They've given me love that feels bigger than anything I could have imagined. So when they react strongly, I don't take it as hate. I take it as emotion, as proof that they care even when it hurts. One night, I went to the rooftop of my studio. It was cold but quiet. I remember looking at the city lights, how they flickered like little secrets no one tells. And I thought about what it means to grow up in front of the world. Every time I open up, the world listens. Every time I stay silent, the world wonders why. It's a strange balance, being known but never fully understood. I sat there for hours, just breathing, thinking about the word marriage. It's such a simple word, but it carries a whole universe inside it. To some people, it's a goal. To others, it's pressure. For me, it's peace. It's the idea of sharing your days with someone who knows your quiet side, the version of you the world doesn't see. And maybe that's why it slipped out during that interview. Because deep down, I've been craving something real, something that isn't scheduled or scripted or rehearsed, something that exists even when the lights go off. Later, I called my mom. She asked, "Did you really talk about marriage?" I said, "Yeah, I did." She laughed softly and said, "You've grown up, haven't you?" And that simple line made me emotional because only a mother can say something so gentle and still make it feel like a life lesson. She told me, "Don't rush it, Taehyung. The right time always finds you. Just don't close your heart waiting for it." Those words stayed with me because sometimes I think I've been so focused on protecting my heart that I forgot it's supposed to feel. Being in this industry teaches you to be careful, to think before you speak, to smile even when you're tired, to show strength even when you're breaking inside. But that day, I didn't want to be careful. I just wanted to be me. And maybe that's what scared people seeing the real me. Because the real me isn't always perfect or mysterious or poetic. Sometimes I'm just a guy who misses simple things like walking without a mask, holding someone's hand, or having dinner without cameras around. I know people imagine idols living flawless lives, but honestly, there are nights when I stare at the ceiling and wonder if I'll ever have something normal. A small house, a dog, a garden maybe. Someone who waits for me to come home. That kind of dream feels huge to me. So when people ask, "Why marriage, Taehyung?" I wish I could tell them because marriage to me means belonging not to the world but to someone. It means creating a space where I can be soft, where I don't have to perform. It means being known, truly known, and still loved. There's a kind of loneliness that comes with success. It's scared but heavy, and sometimes all you want is someone who reminds you you're more than what the world sees. That's why I spoke about it, not to start rumors, but to remind myself that it's okay to want something deeper than fame. As the days went by, things slowly settled. The noise faded, but the feeling stayed, that sense of calm after a storm. And I realized something. When you speak from your heart, people might misunderstand you at first, but eventually they'll feel your sincerity. Now, when I think about that moment, the flashing lights, the gasps, the trending hashtags, I don't feel regret. I feel gratitude because that moment reminded me that I'm still human enough to surprise even myself. There's still a long road ahead of me. More songs, more travels, more stories to tell. And maybe someday, when I meet the person I'm meant to be with, I'll remember this time, the moment when I stopped hiding what my heart truly wanted. For now, I'm not in a rush. I'm learning to be patient with myself, to listen to the rhythm of my own life without forcing it to move faster than it should. Because love, real love, doesn't come from headlines. It comes quietly, like a melody that finds you when you least expect it. So, to everyone who wondered what I meant that day, here's the truth. I wasn't announcing anything. I was simply speaking out loud a thought that had been in my heart for a long time. A thought about love, about peace, and about the kind of life I hope to live. Maybe that's all I've ever wanted, to live honestly, to love freely, and to let my heart be seen, even if it scares me. Pauses with a soft smile. So if you heard me talk about marriage, don't think of it as news. Think of it as me finally saying what I've always felt, that beyond the fame, beyond the noise, I'm just a man who still believes in love. After a few weeks, the noise finally started to fade. The headlines changed. The hashtags disappeared. But the feeling inside me didn't. It stayed quiet, steady, like a whisper that wouldn't go away. I began to notice how differently people looked at me. Some with curiosity, some with warmth, and others with a kind of sadness in their eyes. As if I had grown too fast, as if I'd stepped into a new chapter they weren't ready to read yet. That's the strange thing about fame. You grow, and the world watches, but not everyone grows with you. Some want you to stay the same forever. The boy who smiles on stage, the man who flirts through the camera, the artist who sings about love but never truly claims it. And yet, I can't be that boy forever. Because behind the stage lights, behind the lyrics, there's a human being who still feels lonely sometimes. And that's the part people often forget. Idols are not built from perfection, they're built from people. There were nights after that interview when I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the line between my life and my image. It's blurry. Sometimes I can't tell where Taehyung the artist ends and Taehyung the man begins. I wonder if I made a mistake, if being that honest was too much, but then again, what's the point of living a life where you can't even speak your own truth? If being honest about wanting love makes me look weak, then I'm fine with being weak. Because love isn't weakness, it's courage. It's the courage to open your heart, even when the world might not understand. There's something I haven't shared before. A few days after that interview, I went for a walk alone, no staff, no cameras, no disguise. It was late at night, and the air felt clean, like the world was finally quiet enough for me to breathe. I passed by a small park, and I saw an old couple sitting on a bench. They weren't talking much, just sitting there, holding hands, watching the streetlights flicker. It was such a simple scene, but it hit me harder than any award I've ever won. Because that's what I meant. That's the kind of peace I was talking about. Not luxury, not fame, not perfection. Just quiet companionship. I remember smiling to myself, thinking, maybe that's how I want to live someday. Not surrounded by cameras, but by someone who understands my silence. When I went back home that night, I started writing not a song for release, just something for myself. I wrote about love that doesn't need to be seen, about promises that don't need an audience, and about how it feels to want something real in a world that often feels unreal. I wrote until the sun came up, and when I looked at the page, I realized the words weren't about marriage. They were about freedom. The freedom to be who I am without being edited, filtered, or analyzed. A few days later, I talked to one of the members. He smiled and said, "You said what many of us wanted to say, Hyung." And hearing that made me feel less alone because I know every one of us at some point has wondered what life would feel like without all the noise around us. We're grateful for everything, but we're also human enough to crave simplicity. That conversation reminded me that honesty can be contagious. It can open doors not just for yourself, but for others too. Still, I'm aware that being honest comes with a price. Some people might walk away, some might judge, and some might misunderstand. But I've learned that peace doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from knowing you spoke your truth with kindness. Since that day, I've been more intentional with my words. I think before I speak not because I'm afraid, but because I want every word to mean something. I don't want to fill the world with noise. I want to fill it with sincerity. Sometimes fans send me letters saying, Taehyung, don't change. But the truth is I am changing. And I hope you do too. Because change isn't losing yourself. It's becoming more of who you really are. When I think about marriage now, it's not an announcement. It's a reflection, a symbol of growth, of acceptance, of loving without fear. It's about finding balance between my world and the world around me. There are moments during concerts when I look out at the ocean of lights, ARMY waving their hands, singing along, and I think this is also love, a different kind of love, but real nonetheless. You've been with me longer than most people ever will be. You've seen me through joy and heartbreak, success and exhaustion, and for that, I'm endlessly grateful. So when I talk about marriage or love, I hope you don't hear it as a goodbye. It's not me leaving, it's me growing. It's me learning how to love more honestly, both on and off the stage. I used to think love had to be hidden to stay pure. Now I know love only grows stronger when it's rooted in truth. That's what I want my life to be about now. Truth. Not perfection, not mystery, just truth. And maybe someday, if I ever get married, I won't make it a big announcement. Maybe I'll just smile, write a song that says it all, and let you feel it through the music. Because that's how I've always shared my heart, through melodies, through whispers between verses, through the pauses between words. Until then, I'll keep living honestly, keep making music that reflects where I am, and keep believing in love. Not the kind that exists for headlines, but the kind that quietly lasts a lifetime. Poses softly, voice warm and calm. And if you've ever wondered what's real about me, this is it. My dreams, my fears, my longing for peace, and my hope that someday I'll find someone who sees me not as Taehyung the idol, but as just Taehyung, a man who still believes in love, no matter how loud the world gets. You know, sometimes when I sit quietly at night, I think about how love changes over time. When I was younger, love felt like a movie: fast, passionate, dramatic, unpredictable. But as I grew older, it started to feel softer, like a quiet sunrise instead of a thunderstorm. Maybe that's what maturity does to you. It teaches you that love isn't just about excitement, it's about peace. And the more I understand that, the more I realize how important it is to protect that peace. Being in this industry, you get used to people talking about you, guessing things, assuming things, putting words in your mouth before you even say them. And when it comes to love or marriage, the curiosity multiplies. Sometimes it's flattering. Other times it feels like a weight because behind those rumors are real people, real feelings, real hearts. It's easy for the world to forget that emotions are not entertainment. That's why I've learned to stay quiet sometimes. Not because I have something to hide, but because silence is also a form of strength. There's a difference between being secretive and being private. I choose privacy because some parts of me belong only to the people I love. When I think about marriage, I think about trust before anything else. It's not about finding someone perfect, it's about finding someone you can be imperfect with. Someone you can laugh with on bad days and cry with when words fail. Someone who looks at you and sees both the man and the child inside you. There's a certain kind of loneliness that comes with being seen by millions. You walk into a room and everyone knows your name, but very few actually know you. That's why, for me, love has to be something sacred, something untouched by the chaos of fame. I once had a conversation with an old friend, someone who's known me before BTS, before all the lights and stages. He said, "You've always been searching for something that feels like home." And he was right. That's what I'm still searching for. Not a house, not success, but home. Home is a person who makes you feel calm just by being near. Home is someone who listens even when you have nothing to say. Home is the quiet after the storm, the laughter between two people who understand each other without needing to explain. Sometimes fans ask me, "Do you believe in soulmates?" And I do. But I don't think a soulmate is someone who's perfect for you. A soulmate is someone who mirrors you. Your flaws, your fears, your hopes. They challenge you, they comfort you, and somehow they help you become a better version of yourself. If I ever find that kind of person, I wouldn't rush. I'd protect that connection with everything I have. Because love built in a rush is love that burns too fast. But love built on patience, that's the one that lasts. There's a part of me that still dreams of small things. Making breakfast together, walking under the rain without caring who's watching, leaving handwritten notes on the kitchen table, and laughing about the silliest things. Simple mama, but that's what I want. I know people might expect me to have some grand, perfect love story, but I don't want perfect. I want real. Because in the end, real love is quiet. It's consistent and it grows deeper in silence. Sometimes I imagine myself years from now, not on stage, but somewhere peaceful, maybe in the countryside, with someone who understands my heart without words. Maybe there's music playing softly. Maybe there's a dog running around the yard, and I'm sitting by the window watching the world slow down. That image makes me smile because for the first time, I see a future that isn't about achievement, it's about peace. And peace, that's what I've been searching for all along. I used to think love was about finding someone who fits perfectly into your life. Now I think it's about finding someone who helps you build a new one together. I know that someday, if I meet that person, I'll be ready, not because I have everything figured out, but because I finally understand who I am. You can't truly love someone until you know yourself, your fears, your triggers, your dreams, and I think that's the phase I'm in now. Learning myself deeply so I can love deeply when the time comes. To be honest, there are still days when I feel scared. What if I lose myself again? What if being open hurts me? What if the world doesn't understand? But then I remind myself living in fear is not living. If love is a risk, then I'd rather take it than live in regret. Army always tells me, Taehyung will support you no matter what. And those words, they mean more to me than you think because they remind me that I don't have to choose between love and music. I can have both as long as I stay true to myself. That's why moving forward, I want to live authentically. I want to create art that reflects my truth, not just the smiling Taehyung you see in videos, but the real one, the one who has fears, who overthinks, who sometimes gets lost in his own thoughts. I think honesty is a kind of intimacy too. And maybe by being honest, I can help others feel less alone. There's one last thing I want to say to the people who've loved me all this time, even when I wasn't perfect, even when I was silent. Thank you for letting me grow. Thank you for not caging me in the image you first fell in love with. Thank you for understanding that I'm more than just what you see on screen because love in any form is not about possession. It's about freedom. And I hope all of us find that kind of love one day. Pauses, soft breath, tone lowers. If you ever wonder what love means to me now, it means peace. It means truth. It means finding someone who feels like the calm after a storm. And if that happens, if someday I meet that person, I won't hide it. I'll just live it quietly, sincerely, like a melody that only grows more beautiful with time. Sometimes I think about how fame changes the way people love you. It's strange because when millions of eyes are watching, every smile, every glance, every word you say, it stops being just yours. It becomes everyone's. And in that process, you start to lose the line between what's real and what's performance. There are days when I wonder if I wasn't Taehyung from BTS, would people still see me the same way? Would they still like my voice, my laugh, the way I speak slowly when I'm lost in thought? Or would I just be another face in the crowd? Fame gives you everything, and yet it takes just as much, especially when it comes to love. Because love, real love, needs space to grow. It needs privacy, quiet, the freedom to make mistakes without headlines waiting outside your door. There was a time when I thought I could separate the two, the artist and the man, but the truth is, you can't. When you live in the public eye, your life becomes a mirror for everyone's expectations. And sometimes that mirror feels too heavy to hold. I've seen people fall in love with the version of me they created in their minds, the one who's always smiling, always poetic, always perfect. But that's not real. The real me forgets things. The real me gets quiet when I'm hurt. The real me sometimes needs to disappear for a while just to remember how to breathe. That's why if I ever love someone deeply, I'll protect that love with everything I have. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but because I know how fragile it can be when the world keeps trying to define it. Love, for me, doesn't need to be shown. It just needs to be felt. I remember once, during a tour, I was sitting alone in a hotel room, the lights off, the city glowing outside the window. Everyone else had gone to sleep, but I couldn't. I felt empty even after performing for thousands of people. It made me realize how lonely fame can be. You give so much of yourself on stage. Your energy, your emotions, your words, that sometimes there's nothing left when you're alone. And in those moments, I understood why love is so important. It's the only thing that reminds you you're more than the image on screen. That night, I wrote something in my notes app. It said, "Fame gives you noise, love gives you silence. And between those two, I'll always choose silence." That line stayed with me because silence is where I find myself again. It's where I remember that before all of this, before the music, before the cameras, I was just a boy who loved art, who loved nature, who wanted to make people feel something real. Sometimes I miss that simplicity. I miss being able to walk without being recognized, to laugh freely without worrying about how it'll look in a photo. But that's the trade I made for my dream, and I don't regret it. I just learned that I have to build balance. And that balance, I think, comes from love, not the romantic kind alone, but love for myself, for my craft, for life. There's something deeply healing about knowing who you are, even when the world keeps trying to tell you otherwise. It's what keeps me grounded. People often ask, "Don't you feel pressure to settle down soon?" And I laugh because love shouldn't have a deadline. Marriage isn't a trend. It's not something you do because people expect it. It's something you do because your soul tells you this is home. When I see couples who've been together for decades, I notice how calm their love looks. It's not loud or showy. It's gentle, patient, and kind. That's the kind of love I want. A love that grows slowly, quietly, like roots beneath the ground. There was an older musician I once met, someone I really respect. He told me, "Taehyung, don't let fame teach you that love is dangerous. It's not. It's the only thing that'll keep you human." And that stuck with me because I've seen people close themselves off, building walls so high that no one could ever reach their hearts again. I don't want to be like that. I want to keep my heart open even if it gets hurt because every scar tells a story and every story reminds me that I'm alive. I think people forget that love doesn't end with heartbreak. It evolves. Sometimes the person you loved becomes a memory that teaches you how to love better next time. And that's okay. I've had moments when I cared deeply for someone, but timing wasn't right. When you live this kind of life, constant movement, schedules, cameras, you realize how hard it is to build something lasting. But even when it doesn't work out, I never see it as failure because love in any form always leaves something beautiful behind. Maybe it's a lesson, maybe it's a song, maybe it's just the way you smile differently because you've known what it feels like to care. I think that's why I write so many songs about emotion. They're not just melodies. They're moments I couldn't say out loud. My music has always been my diary, my safe place. It's how I share the parts of me that words can't carry. Sometimes, when I sing live, I feel tears in my throat. Not because I'm sad, but because I can feel every story that built that song. Every late night, every heartbreak, every small victory. That's why love will always be part of my art. Because art is born from feeling. Pause, deep breath. And maybe that's the truth behind all the rumors, all the headlines, all the questions about marriage. It's not that I'm hiding something, it's just that I believe some stories don't need to be told, they just need to be lived. I want to live mine quietly, sincerely, without pressure, without fear. I want to wake up one day and realize that love didn't just happen to me, it grew with me. So when you hear me talk about marriage, don't think of it as gossip or surprise. Think of it as a reflection of someone who's finally ready to live a real life, not just a public one. That's the truth behind my plans, not a secret, not a scandal, just a man learning what love really means in a world that rarely slows down enough to feel it. Pauses softly, tone turns gentle. And if you're listening to this, wherever you are, I hope you find love that brings you peace. Not love that burns, but love that stays. Because that's what I want too. Something that stays, something real, something quiet, but eternal. Thank you for listening, for staying with me until the end. So, thank you, Army, for letting me be myself, for letting me grow, for listening. Not just to my music, but to my truth.